Galadriel reveals herself to be a complete traitor in this scene, without having any shred of reason to trust Adar in the slightest. She reveals Gil-galad's plans, and then she reveals that Nenya is her ring.
Let's get started talking about Adar and the Elves.
It's episode 6. I'm so glad. I only have 2 more episodes to go.
I guess, yeah, I'm glad. It's so funny because I look forward to these reviews because we laugh so much during it because, like we said, it kind of becomes Mystery Science Theater 3000. And so we start. That part is good. So we start with Arondir running and meeting some deserter orcs, and he kills them, and then he finds a map to Eregion with these orcs right here.
And this is the only thing we ever see from Arondir.
You're covering up the microphone a little bit.
Oops.
There you go.
Arondir is not in the episode besides that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking this is Eregion right here, I believe. So that's the city, I'm guessing, right here. And then there are these red lines. I don't know if you can see them. I think that's the movement of the orcs. So these orcs, these deserter orcs, kept a map, or these orcs left behind. I know they're deserter orcs because they were talking about, can't we just have peace?
Right. Yeah. I only have 2 things to say about this. First, there is a real, like, the way he finds this map. Let me just say, he kills the orc, and then he walks up to him like he knows that there's a map hidden inside his gauntlet, and just picks up his arm, picks up his gauntlet, pulls up. We don't even see anything sticking out or anything. It's just, and why does he do that? Let me point out something. Orcs not known for their literacy, not known for like when they're told to go somewhere. Yeah. There might be people that lead them that know what's going on, but it's not like they don't know places. But they're not huge map makers and map readers. It's really just contrivance.
Well, yeah, and like I said, these are deserter orcs, so why would they even carry the stuff that they don't need anymore, right? So why would they carry that in their gauntlet?
But the other thing, so this is all pure contrivance. So it's like, we as the reader, as the watchers, have to understand that Arondir now knows there's an invasion in progress, and the invasion has as its target the center of Eregion. And by the way, as I was saying to you, they've totally lost the Austin Athel. They used to show us the city, and then say with those fancy letters saying Austin and Athel, because that's what actually is being laid siege to by the end of this episode. But instead, they just say Eregion now. When Eregion is a whole massive region, and the orcs aren't laying siege to Eregion. They're traveling through Eregion to get to Austin Athel. But now they just tweeted, the characters just talk about it as Eregion. So whatever. So here we are. So we're dumbing down to start with. But then there's just it isn't like Arondir has any reason to figure out what they're doing and what they're up to. It's just, it's a map that tells us now he's going to go to there. And this kind of contrivance is so, I mean, we've made fun of these guys so much before as bad community theater. But this is what it is. This is like, there's the transitions, the reasons why characters do things, like whatever.
Yeah, I know we didn't talk about the last episode either, because you were on the road. But that anvil falling from the ceiling, this huge anvil.
Exactly.
I'm just like, what? Just to make it seem dangerous, but it's an anvil. Could you at least drop the chandelier or something? What? Who's going to put an anvil in the ceiling?
Like, why is that anvil suspended in the air?
Yeah, with one little rope, like, and it just comes out because she tripped on it? Like, who tied up the anvil in anyway? Anyway, that's the sort of thing, right? They have to add these... anything, they're allowed to do anything in their own mind in order to meet the goal of what it is they're trying to do. Okay, we need to get Arondir there. Let's just have the scene that he finds it. It doesn't have to... there's no harmony.
Arondir has to get to Austin Athel. How is he going to do it? Well, let's just have him find some orcs and kill them, and then magically know where they keep their notes. And then their notes, they happen to have detailed maps of the where they're invading and all this stuff. So it's just dumb. Yeah. Well, also, I'd like to point out something about this whole scenario. So this is Austin Athel that we're seeing in the screen here, and Celebrimbor's tower, presumably, and he rules this city.
He's the leader.
That's made clear, especially by a bunch of stuff that's said during this. So he rules the city. It's a city apparently of about 18 people, because every scene that we have, we look at things. It's like they're trying to prove to us that it's community theater, because you just get these scenes where it's like there's the same 8 elves in the scene, and they're all, of course,
it's
DEI range,
and I'm sure we'll talk about that with Numenor too, right? They do the exact same thing. It's like the same group of 25 people in every large crowd scene. It's so funny.
It's stunning that they had so much money, and like a shot like this is kind of beautiful, actually. Nothing wrong with it. I like it.
Yeah.
But then their sets are small, and their cast is small, and the motivations are small, and this leads to one of the craziest scenes here, where
speaking of community theater.
Oh yeah, go for it. What do you got?
You who live not, breathe not, possess not.
It's this funny little speech he has at the medal. He's angry at it. Again, they have not shown us him or anybody else forging anything.
Well, I have to say there's a line at the end where, at the very end of this episode, where Halbro Sauron says to him, he gives him a hammer and he says, "Use it, my friend." And I was cheering. I was like, yes, please, finally use a hammer, because you literally have not swung a hammer. There's been zero smithing,
nothing.
For almost 2 full seasons. You're the greatest living smith, apparently, in Middle Earth, and you have not been shown smithing a single thing, not once, ever. And I want him to use the hammer too.
And they've never made a mistake before with the rings. They've never shown us doing anything. There's never been any sort of lead up to this, even though Tolkien does say there were lesser rings made before these rings. They could have actually leaned into that and made it they actually knew what they were doing. So maybe they were creating rings before Halbrand came and they were doing stuff right. But no, they did go in, and he throws things down, and there's the mouse. The mouse. They don't care about the cleanliness. These elves, they're the dirty elves of us and Ethel. They're the dirty smiths. They leave the mice just running around, because the mice, what they do is they go and they look for food among the scraps of metal. That's what you
do when you're a mouse. It's where all the food is.
Just to make it look more barren and dangerously like they can't do anything. Like it's not worth anything, these rings, that they throw a mouse in there. I thought that was
right. It's the trash. So, like mice crawl among trash. So it was just some 13-year-old writer is like, what would make it look more like a trash heap? I know, we'll put mice there.
That's right. And so we find out they're out of Mithril, and Celebrimbor can't remember her name.
Okay. So dumb. This is so dumb. If an elf ever got to the point, and this reminds me,
that's what I feel like.
Well, good screenshot there, sir. Because this encapsulates so much of what's wrong with this show. This episode opened with Arondir running through the forest, and we have a quick battle scene where he takes down 3 orcs with ease. And it reminded me, and then we got to this scene where Celebrimbor is he's in apparently mid-stage dementia, and he doesn't smith. He talks to metal, but he doesn't smith. He is pathetic. He is faltering, and it reminded me, and it clicked with me. I thought, this is why, one of the reasons, because people often ask us, why do you care so much? Why do you make so much of the small details that show how stupid this show is in comparison to Tolkien? And this is one of the things I noticed, where actually, I don't like the character of Arondir, because he's just sort of like, DEI elf, but his character as an elvish character is more believable than Celebrimbor. Celebrimbor is not an elf. We're told he is. He's just a faltering, stupid, venal,
prideful,
small-minded old man.
Yeah.
That's all he is. And we don't see any glory. We don't see any greatness. That's part of the problem.
But they've told us he's great, Michael. They've told us so many times that he's great.
And they've shown us that he isn't. So they could say what they want, through the mouths of other characters, but as a character, he's pathetic. Same thing with Galadriel, she's pathetic. Same thing with Gil-Gadaddy, he's pathetic. All of Elrond is pathetic. All of the characters that Tolkien had are pathetic. And then they have some characters like Merdania. We see her back of her head here. She actually acts kind of like an elf. We have Arondir. He acts like an elf for the most part. Adar is a corrupted elf, but he's a better character as an elf than Celebrimbor. So everything about what they do with their characters is unbelievable. And it's almost like it's suited for the ruination of Tolkien's characters, and then they promote their own characters and they write like what Tolkien's characters ought to be. Like Adar is one of my favorite characters in this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's ugly, evil, desires the destruction of everyone that's living in Eregion, and I like him more than Celebrimbor. If they can't see the problem in that, then I'm kind of out of words. For them.
They've still made Adar into a schizo leader in a way, right? Because he's like, oh, we like, I love my children, but here's the head of the child, as you pointed out a couple episodes ago. Here's the head of your child, and he doesn't really care. He doesn't care how many of them are going to die ultimately. But he actually, there's a reason for him, and they show him caring at least for the orcs, even though I disagree with that whole storyline. They show him, and so we start believing that more. The problem is with all these elf characters, they tell us all the time of everything that's happening. I've told this over and over again. And even in this episode, after we find out that Celebrimbor can't remember Myrdanya's names, Sauron says he's going too deep into making the rings. And now we find out, oh, you're also the leader of Eregion. They never mentioned that before. Like, they never really talked about him being the leader. And so now they make Halbrand the administrator. So they do all these things. They've never shown us that it's important that Halbrand takes over. So we don't really care that he does. That's a bad thing that Celebrimbor is abandoning his duties there. And it's this constant, I just don't care about these characters anymore because you've never made me care about them.
Well, and apparently they don't care about themselves because, first of all, apparently Eregion Osnathiel is now all of Eregion. And Eregion has 18 people in it, as we're seeing when Halbrand goes out and talks to them. And this was the funniest part. Man, this was the funniest part. At the end of the scene where he's out there, so Celebrimbor's losing it. He's a dementia patient.
Yeah, the hammer. He doesn't see the hammer behind him, and then the hammer is behind him. Like it's like Halbrand makes it appear there. Actually, so.
Yeah. And Halbrand, I mean, look, he's making a fool of him, and then we're meant to say to be what we're meant to believe from this is that he's gaining control of Celebrimbor's mind, and fair enough, fine. I mean, there's going to be something like that happen. This is their take on it. That part of it I don't have a problem with, but the idea that he would be acting like a dementia patient and his elven apprentices. Look, I'm going to stand up for the Elvish Apprentice Union here. They're actually, they should be intelligent. First of all, they can actually craft, because I've seen them swing hammers and forge things. But second of all, they're totally underappreciated and misrepresented by this. If you had a bunch of elven apprentices whose master was going truly senile, you have to understand, we think of this as, we're meant to think of this when we watch it as, oh, look, like there's something wrong with him. There's something off with him. No. You don't understand. If an elf had those kinds of failings, we kind of brush that off sometimes because as humans, age does that to humans. But elves, that doesn't happen with elves. They don't get. Yes, excellent.
Sorry. This is, if you're listening, this is the Elvish Apprentice Union, one of the logos that I can't remember her name. She sent it to us. We're going to try, Anushka, we're going to try and put it on t-shirt. Anyway, sorry. I had to bring this up as you were talking.
Yeah, someday you will see us wearing this t-shirt. And what I love most is Elvish, the Tangwar underneath. Do you have the exact quote? I have a paraphrase of it, but it's basically taking human jobs since the Second Age.
Yeah, here's a couple other ones. There's this one here. It has the same sort of thing. And there's also this one that she just wrote it here. Doing the hard work while others
just plot me through.
Dude. I like it. We'll have to have something made. So anyway, sorry, I interrupted you in the midst of your.
Well, I'm just if a group of apprentices, these themselves, like, they are apprentices, or they're they're working with, they're smiths working with him, but these are thousands of years, elves that are probably hundreds, if not thousands of years old. If they saw the mental failings in their master the way they're showing us with Celebrimbor, they would have pulled the ripcord a long time ago. They would have called into question. They would have sent out messages. And also, apparently, and this is proof, this whole scene when Sauron goes outside, Anatar goes outside and says, I'm now going to rule in his stead. I'm going to take care of all the business in his stead. And they show him a dead body with a carving on it, because that's what orcs do. They carve in dwarvish runes on a guy's chest when they want to send messages to elves. But they said, and he's handling it, and he's tell no one of this. You mean like?
You mean all the people behind you, right there?
All the people around you who have no doubt seen this. It's been sitting out here for hours, if not days.
I love how they're still just walking there. They're like, la la la, nothing's going on. Why is the administrator and the Elvish Apprentice Union representative out there
with a dead body carved in his chest in the middle of our square? So this whole scene is the proof that this is community theater, because, as you mentioned, nobody seems to care about anything that's happening, first of all. Second of all, everyone's already seen this. So saying stupid things like tell no one of this. Like, literally, they've been trying to get Celebrimbor's attention for a while now. And they're not even hiding the body. So everyone knows about it.
They don't care.
Third of all, they're acting like they are literally 18 people on a stage. Why? Because think about what this is supposed to be. This is supposed to be an elvish city populated by probably many thousands of elves. And yet we find out at the end of this scene that right outside the city, there's literally fire plumes of camps across the way. That's Sauron. And what does Sauron have to do to see that there is an army across the way? He literally walks on the parapet. Okay? So you have 18 elves living in a city, and they don't even walk.
They have no clue.
Parapet?
They like they don't care what goes on outside of their walls, I guess. So they don't ever look. The fire's burning there. That would there's just some men
it's worse.
Cooking
worse
some
than that, because
deer.
they told us they cared about it, because they were like, we didn't know what had happened, and so we sent out messengers, and the only one of them came back and is carved up. I wonder who could have done it. I don't know. Maybe walk up 10 steps and look out and see the fire, the invading army's fires, which Sauron does, and apparently nobody in the city of thousands does.
Well,
stupid.
The problem is the northern army was gone. All 5 of them were in the north. The southern army commander, the western and the eastern army commanders were still over in Linden, so they had no leadership to know what to do. So they just stayed behind.
You don't need leadership. You just walk up the stairs and look out over your parapet like Sauron just did. Clearly, there's a large army there with massive amounts of campfires.
It's so dumb.
Okay,
it's so dumb.
It's so stupid.
It is.
So what this means is, however many people, I mean, someday I hope I find out who's in the writer's room, because how many people you have to to sit there and read this script and watch the beat on the script, and nobody says anything like, wait a minute, is this really believable? That's a whole city full of people and nobody sees the campfires across the river.
I mean, this is what happens when you hire not for merit, when you hire for other goals. And I'll let you guys decide what those other goals were. But they made a point to say that their writer room was very diverse, that it was, I think, how many women? I don't know. I don't care what you look like or what's between your legs when you write. You just have to write well. One of my favorite authors is Flannery O'Connor. Guess what? I'm a white Protestant male and she's a Catholic female. I like Flannery O'Connor, and it doesn't matter at all. And here you get these stupid, incredibly dumb, nobody is there to say, oh, and maybe they would come up there and actually look at the fire. Would they be curious about who might have killed the one elf? Because, elves don't die unless they're actually slain. So maybe they would be, nobody sits there and actually thinks this through. This reminds me, it's like the Phantom Menace on steroids, where nobody questioned George Lucas. But the difference is here, nobody's got enough brain cells to actually question anything in the writer's room. And the entire show, I don't understand seeing people who say season 2 is so much better than season 1. I'm like, have you seen anything? I've been watching House of the Dragon. I've enjoyed George R.R. Martin's stories. I think he does it well. It's totally different than Tolkien, but I at least enjoy it. The way they write is so much better than this. It's believable. They don't have just 2 scenes of people talking to each other. There are actually things happening in the scenes. They show over and over again. There's the scene in the last episode of one queen and the other queen standing together, and there's the one queen has to make a very difficult decision. And she's standing there for like 15 seconds, and you see it. It's well done acting. You see the pain, like what she has to decide. And I thought, okay, a lot of people didn't like that scene, but I thought it was acted really well. You get none of that in here because they're just going to tell you, this is really hard for me. They don't let the actor show us that this is really hard for them to make this decision. That's what you get throughout this whole show. I also love in this scene that they say, that Halbrand says, pray that he finishes this work before it finishes him. And I'm like, oh, who are they praying to? Just nobody apparently doesn't really know.
Yeah, and you compare it to House of the Dragon, and that's another great comparison, because in House of the Dragon, and anyone that knows, again, George R.R. Martin and I are probably complete polar opposites on everything we believe, metaphysically and everything else. But he's a good storyteller when he actually writes the story, and so. But what he understands is that if, for example, you have a leader of a city who's been supplanted by somebody else, in this case Halbro, and he gets a report, you bet everything you can bet everything you own that George R.R. Martin would write out a plot where there are other people in charge of things like the city watch and the security, and they have agency, and they will be sending out more patrols and drawing their own conclusions. And if the leader of their city isn't responsive, they'll run it in his absence. But this is not that. This is community theater. So in community theater, when it's the leader, or what I thought of actually when I was watching this scene, I thought of Glee Club. Like, they're just all acting like they're part of a big Glee Club where it's like, oh, but our leader's working out the next musical number, so we can't possibly do anything. We're just going to sit around here in the public square and talk amongst ourselves and pretend that we're actually guards and we're actually doing, we're actually living in a city, when it's clear from everything around, there's nothing real about this scene. There's nothing believable about this scene. Yeah. It's just all contrivance. So anyway, we spent a long time on this, but it just highlights the difference in quality between a good story and not. So here we are, back to our what is this called? The Swedish angle.
The Dutch angle, the Dutch angle, the Swedish angle. It's the Viking angle.
That's right.
Adar and Galadriel are sitting down at a nice romantic dinner date there, and he talks all about how Adar tells her how Sauron takes over your mind. He slithers in and worms his way. And I'm like, oh wait, so how did you get out from under it? Because you did. Right. You never. Yeah. Like, can you tell us how that worked? Yeah.
And furthermore, he says to her, that he's sure that Halbro is Sauron. You mean the guy you had in your power and let go? You're sure that he's Sauron? How? Now, don't get me wrong here. Don't get me wrong. There could be a plot line under which you show how Adar comes to realize that he probably did have Sauron in his power as Halbro. But there is exactly zero things given to us to lead us down the path. How did he get from point A of I'm sending Halbro to Austin Afield to figure out where Sauron was to point B here in this conversation? I think he's Sauron, or I'm sure he's Sauron. I have to admit, Jonathan, I started watching episode 6 before I did 5 because I was starting to prepare for this episode, and I thought I might be able to get away with it, but I didn't. And it was this scene I got to that I stopped it, and I'm like, I got to watch episode 5 because I'm sure they tell us some clue in episode 5
That's
about
not
how
how
Adar would.
Why
then
do you give
know
them
that-
so much credit?
because it is beyond reason to think that someone in a writer's room would be like,
man.
because you're all about character
Yeah,
motivation.
yeah,
Like, how
yeah.
does he get to point A to point B? Tell me something. Like, give me a stupid reason. That's better than no. But no, there's nothing. He just magically knows that the guy that he let go is now
Halbrand is
Sauron.
now. He's got to be. There. I mean, I think they live in the hope that we won't question it ever. We won't be like, wait, okay, because we know Halbrand is Sauron, and we know that he's there making the rings. So it's okay. We'll just say that he knows now too. I think so. They just skate right by it. The other thing about this scene is that he brings out literally Morgoth's crown. He has Morgoth's. They say Morgoth's crown.
Yeah, Tiny Morgoth. Well, they say they reforged it. Yep.
Do they?
Yep.
But it was made into a collar by was it Owley or was it who's the wrestler the Tulkas. Thank you. Was it Tulkas? Anyway, it was made into a collar to jail Morgoth, to bring him back to Valinor after he was defeated in Angband at the end.
Hey, shut up. Don't bring in facts.
So somehow he got hold of it and was reforged. Sauron reforged it because they needed it. And apparently it's only Morgoth's crown that can kill Sauron. If you turn it upside down, it now becomes a weapon to kill him. So what? Like he says essentially that, like, oh, this here only this.
And first of all, like how does, like, we saw Sauron die, and it wasn't because the crown stabbed him. That was the start. But then he got knifed like 150 times by orcs. And that was shown to be the thing. Like, he's getting progressively weaker as being knifed by orcs.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I mean, this is just this is stupid. But here's the best part, and by best I mean worst, because this scene in my mind kind of completes, or almost completely almost fully completes the arc of the destruction of Galadriel's character. Galadriel reveals herself to be a complete traitor in this scene, because without having any shred of reason to trust Adar in the slightest, she reveals what? She reveals Gil-galad's plans, first of all.
Yep.
And then she reveals that Nenya is her ring, and it's on the way to Ost-Nithil. What the heck?
It's like, and then
okay, here's you want to know what I think is an editing error? I mean, like, it's probably not, but it's so stupid. The script is so stupid, it clearly looks at an editing error. She then later on in the scene says to Adar, "You speak lies, hoping I will reveal something." I literally started laughing out loud.
Like, you revealed it already?
Revealed something. Like, you speak lies, hoping I will reveal something. You mean 3 sentences after you literally told him all the elves' plans and about Nenya for no reason whatsoever? That's something like that, maybe. And he says to her, you've already revealed everything I need. Which, duh, because she just literally did. So she's a traitor to her people. She reveals the plan. She is now going to be responsible for all the elven deaths that result when this army fights against Gil-galad's army, or whatever happens. I mean, we know it's going to happen because we see it. At least we know Elrond's going to go to. So,
we know that she'll succeed, because what Adar tells her is that the fate of Eregion rests upon your ability to put aside your pride. So we're like, well, we're doomed. And there's no winning. That's it. Sorry, guys.
She has completed her transition to a pathetic, stupid, and evil character.
To a villain. She is the villain. Like, she's the one that found Sauron, that wouldn't tell them about Sauron, that has these rings now that are apparently bad and ruining everybody based on her and her desire to make them. And then now she's telling the guy with the army where their armies are and where the rings are. She's like Grima Wormtongue. She's informing the bad guys of everything.
Yeah,
it's impressive.
Like
it is impressive.
Version of Grima Wormtongue. That's right. Did you notice that Adar's makeup gets pinker and pinker as we're supposed to be more and more?
No, really?
Yeah, his makeup is paler, is much paler, and then as this whole not just scene but also this episode goes on, his makeup gets slightly more peachy.
All right. Well, let's take a look at that. Well, that's that. We do have to move on. The next scene with the elves. Make sure I get this right. Yeah, isn't until it's another 30, almost 30 minutes later here. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. He's very pinkish right there. Look at that.
Skin is much pinker in this scene.
Yeah, they make him look far more mortal than.
Yeah, well, they're trying to make him more sympathetic.
Yeah,
you know, his skin was almost completely white at the beginning of this series, twisted in white, but now it's pinkish. And you could say, oh, it's the light, but he's been in firelight plenty of times, and this is clearly, more making him more relatable.
Yeah, this is essentially the continuation. We talked about this already, where she, he tells her, she's told her everything he wants to know already. She uses the word "us" to say when she tells Adar about the rings. When he's going to be coming for us, type of thing. So already she's identifying with them, and then she finds out. He finds out. Oh, look! I didn't bring just a legion. I brought many legions that the elves didn't notice coming in Eregion.
It's so stupid.
The elves live in it's like the boy in the bubble. It's like the elves in the bubble of their cities. Like they never touch anything outside of it. It's just right there. The only thing around them is their city walls, and nothing else matters. Even though they say all Middle Earth is going to fail. Apparently, there are no elves walking along pathways. There are no elven scouts. There are no small elven cities that might have. Right? They're just all in one place. So,
the other point. Speaking of the elves, I started laughing was when the attack became imminent, and they started yelling out, "Sound the bells! We're under attack!" And they haven't even launched the attack. Literally, all that's happened is the elves are like, they turned around, they looked out the walls, they're like, "Oh no, there's an army here."
No, those were fires from the bad guys.
In the last 2 weeks, if anyone had looked to the left instead of straight ahead, then we would have seen.
And now she's so mad again.
Well, raging Galadriel.
Like, oh, you're gonna go attack the elves? No, don't do it.
And when she's like yelling at him and he's looking at her, the look on his face is, speaking of relatable. It's a very relatable look. I'm like, it's like the look that the feeling that I feel when like my teenager starts yelling at me about something. I'm like, you like, silly child, go away.
Oh man! All right, okay. All right. So last scene with the elves, right? They start the battle. There's Daddy Elf. He's still upset that he can't have his cottage by the sea with his beautiful young wife and small child.
I still they actually think we're supposed to sympathize with this guy.
Yeah. So he blows this really weird sounding. Here we go. Ready? Let's hear it. The fart horn or something.
Oh my gosh, the whoopee horn, whoopee cushion.
It was so awesome. When I heard that, I'm like, whoa, you really leaned into that hard. All right, okay, sorry.
And then they
so that's the signal for them to start attacking, to start wheeling their large trebuchets and catapults out of.
Which, can I say, it takes weeks to make trebuchets. It shows that literally they've been out there in the forest burning down trees for weeks.
The orcs have been studying for many years in their carpentry skills so that they can build their cottages by the sea. So they've become expert trebuchet.
They can build trebuchet
builders,
in 34
carpenters.
seconds. That's right.
It's no problem at all. I think one thing I have to bring up. Okay, so one thing I have to bring up that is kind of spans the multiple different scenes that we have here, because we have to talk about the doors, is that Halbrand, he starts in Austin Ethiel. He somehow makes it to Khazad-dûm and makes it back to Austin Ethiel. And it's like it's been a day or two. No time has passed. It's like all of a sudden he's there, and then he's way over there, 300 miles away, and then he's way back. So even like 300 miles is according to Tolkien's map. Even if they change it and they were like 100 miles or even 50 miles, like you're talking at least a day's worth of travel at the very, very least. Like 50 miles, no, that's 3 or 4 days. at walking, unless you're
also,
running.
Jonathan, what are those 18 elves going to do while he's gone all that time?
With their administrators in there, and Celebrimbor's losing his mind. They've got to stay. They will never walk on the walls. We know that. They will stay down below. They will not approach the parapets.
Don't lift your head up. No. And so
they're no.
And then
We're
this is
under
the funny
attack.
part. Then they all start running around like rats in a maze, like trampling over each other. There hasn't even been a single catapult stone thrown. It's just like someone started yelling. It's like, yeah.
It reminds me. I was cleaning out this afternoon. I was cleaning out, or I was clearing an area, and there were a couple of bags of mulch that we hadn't opened yet, and I picked one up, and all of a sudden, all the ants started running, and that's exactly like in every direction. Nothing matters. Just move, and that's what they did. They just
trampling each other down. These are elves, okay? They haven't even seen an attack, and they're all screaming like, yes, I know this is getting tiresome, dear listeners. They're all running around the way 13 to 15-year-olds do.
But like, aren't they behind the walls already?
But, yeah. And they're just running in circles. Like they're running from one place to another, trampling each other over.
Like,
they're not going anywhere.
This is,
it isn't
right,
like
so what they're leaning into the fear that the writers think people would have, like, oh no, we're under attack. What they should have done is what something like House of Dragon does, which is show the elves preparing perhaps for battle. They're going to go and they're going to set up their own countermeasures, not just sit there waiting. But they don't. They just show everybody is running around in fear.
Even for the sake of all that is good and true, why don't you show why they're running? Like, why did you put the scenes of them screaming and trampling each other before the catapults started firing? There's literally nothing happening. They can't see anything. Like, oh, they see there's an army out there with fire. Oh, okay. They're going to start screaming and running in circles? No. Like, they're not even under attack yet. There's no.
Oh man. Okay. Well, one person who doesn't know they're under attack here is the sketcher of the rings, not the forger of the rings.
Exactly right.
He sketches the rings.
Did you catch that Sauron asks him, "How's your progress going?" And my first thought was, "Progress of what?
What?
His sketching? Right. Like, are your drawings going well?"
And then he's like, "Nah, that one's no good. I'm going to cross that one out."
Exactly.
So he hears some stuff going on outside, and Halbrand kind of stops him, and then he's like, "No, I'm going outside anyway." He leaves to go outside, and he does have this moment where he throws Halbrand against the wall, which I was like, "Oh, look, he's got a little bit of, I guess, fire in him. Secret fire. We'll find out.
Yeah, sure.
Secret fire." And Halbrand thinks for a moment. He touches the one power. I don't know if you guys have read Wheel of Time. That's exactly essentially what they've done now here in the show, is they've made the secret fire into the one power. We'll talk about that when we get into Tom Bombadil and Rune. And he thinks hard. He thinks very, very hard, and he's able to conjure an entire vision, just like I guess he did for Galadriel, for Celebrimbor out here. So now everybody is laughing and playing. The children are flying kites. There's an artist out there drawing or something. What's he doing? I don't know. Yeah,
they're all just smiling and having fun.
All 18 of them in this small, tiny little courtyard.
Yep. They're doing their community theater thing where everyone's looking really intently at the one thing they're doing, which is pointless. And of course, we got to see. We got to get the DEI shots in here.
Oh my gosh, that's so silly.
DEI children.
Oh man. Yeah. So he comes out here, and they have a nice little discussion about the rings, that he's got to go back and reforge them. The discussion it has two things: is that Halbrand brings him the mithril, which you saw Halbrand cut his hand earlier. Do you remember that? They just randomly showed us him cutting his hand.
Yeah.
I was like, why? And I'm like, maybe he puts his blood in the mithril. His bloody goo goes into the mithril, and that's what paints it.
Weird.
I don't know. That's the only thing I could think.
And he also calls it mithril powder. And anyone that knows anything about anything is like, that's not powder. Those are little pebbles. There's no powder here. Oh, so
judged so harshly. So he butters him up, right? And he says, one, we don't know how. Okay, we'll find out. We don't know how Halbrand has gotten mithril, because it was refused to him by the elves, by the dwarves. So he just still appears with it. I guess he stole it. Again, the whole mantra of the show is just assume.
Show us.
I know.
Why don't they show us? Like, how hard would this be? You have Anatar turn and walk away from Durin, who's refused. We haven't got to this part because we haven't done the dwarf, but he's refused the deal, and then he just goes around a corner and he just disappears into the shadows and comes out of a different shadow in the mines. He picks up some mithril. How hard?
Don't think so hard. This is the budget was only $250 million, Michael. They had their catering budget had to be met. They couldn't show Halbrand actually going in and doing the thing that was most important, was to get more mithril, because they were out of it, because mithril is the magic power that then pushes back the fading of the elves for some reason. It makes and gives, we'll find out, and gives Durin magic, like what is it? What's the thing, the dude with the arrow on his head? Airbender, right? He's an airbender now. He can use air to push his son back, all this sort of stuff. So they needed mithril. He magically has it. But then he talks about how he leans into Celebrimbor. This is the one scene that at least the point of it made more sense, that they lean into the idea that he wants to be a great smith, right? He wants the best Feanor. Now, it's a little ham-handed. It's a little badly written, because they talk about calling, you're going to make something greater. They were going to be the most precious things in Middle-earth. That they use that word.
Yeah,
completely, 100%.
Pregnant pause, precious.
My precious things in Middle-earth. And then he hands him Feanor's hammer to go and do it. And it's all under this guise of being hidden. I don't like, here's what I don't like. Like, taking this as a whole, about how Anatar is not just convincing. He's not just putting on a personality, putting on the being a messenger from the Valar. He is literally changing the world around him to make him do what he wants to do. He is not worming his way inside his mind in the way that Adar said. He's just creating new realities that he's meant to believe in and going with that. It's kind of the super lazy way. We can't figure out how to make a character become believable and to become a confidant of the greatest smith in Middle-earth, the greatest current one. So what we're going to do is we're just going to fake the whole world around him. We're going to make him think he's going crazy by hiding the hammer and then showing the hammer. We're going to do all these sorts of things, and it's so inexpertly done. Think of like characters that you love to hate and you hate to love. They could have done that with him. I would go back to Game of Thrones, like Jaime Lannister or Tyrion Lannister in the show, and how they were written and acted. It's like, you hate to love them, you love to hate them. If they could have done that with him, which I think would have been far more effective than this sort of slimy, I'm going to change the whole world and make Celebrimbor think he's going crazy kind of way, rather than I'm going to convince you because I'm so good at it, just like Tyrion Lannister was so good at it in his role.
Those are good comparisons. I have to tell you that I've kind of come to gain a respect for Charlie Vickers, because he was given such trash here, and he actually does a good, decent job of acting. Like I think he pulls it off pretty well. He's trying to get at something. And the writers give him nothing, and they give him tripe. But his acting job, I actually don't have a problem with. He's, funnily enough, he's a better elf, just like everybody in this. All the elves that Tolkien wrote are terrible in this show, and all the non-elves, be they Tolkien or not, are better elves than the elves. And so, anyway, Charlie Vickers does a good job being a good elf. I mean, not a morally good elf, but an effective.
Yeah. This is like, look, this is supposed to be a great city of the elves. What we get is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 horse, 10, 11, 12 people in the shot with the mountain. There's nothing. It's so funny.
Almost the full city.
Yeah. Like, show us like the grand escape. It's sort of like Numenor too, right? Every time they're showing us people on the ground in Numenor, it's in these small alleyways. I just don't. Okay. Yep. I don't understand. Okay. So we move on. He goes back inside to Smith. The world changes back into, oh no, everybody's running around randomly in danger again, left to right, right to left. I don't know why. I guess no, she's running backwards.
Running
why?
Circles.
We don't know.
Here we go.
Some scared parents with their children, and then he goes up into a tower randomly. Why does he go up into the tower? Just to look, because he's already seen it. And he spreads out his arms. He hasn't done that before in the past. Like, it means anything. Kind of, I don't know. Just weird. Like, they make weird decisions like that. What? Why? I don't know. So I don't know. Then they pan across and they show us the siege engines and how everything is going to be tossed into the air. There we go. And they just stand there like, uh-oh, guys, uh-oh. The elves don't really do anything. They're just kind of standing watching. It looks good. Hey, little too fiery for my taste, but looks good. Not quite as impressive as and there it is. That's the end. Not quite as impressive as throwing a bunch of heads of their friends over the walls of Minas Tirith, which I thought was far better.
Sure. I'm sure that'll come.
Those big blocks of ice. All right, those big blocks of stone that we got at the end of Return of the King, or at the Battle of Pelennor Fields in Return of the King, Peter Jackson's film. All right. Oh, that's the elves. Any final thoughts on the elves in this?
The only thing else I had was like just standard par for the course. The writers don't even know what the motivations of the characters are. Right in the middle of that speech where Celebrimbor is having his head messed with and seeing a kind of utopia while there's chaos around him. He says, he cannot forge more rings now.
Why?
That's what he had decided to do. He's told us he decided to do was forge more rings now. And he says, I literally said in the middle of this, we cannot forge more rings now. Now, he believes that there's peace because he's seen the illusion. So it's not like he's saying we can't forge rings while there's war going on, because he doesn't know there's war going on.
Yeah.
So what is he saying? What is wrong with these writers where they can't even in the same dialogue or monologue write a character who has consistent motivations? Like, are they all on their period? All of is every character, is it the time of month for every character all the time?
So
what's
bad.
going on here? Sorry. It's just terrible, and the fact they're doing it to the elves too pisses me off. So
well,
so everyone, that's the end of our review.
That's the elves
for this part.